Hi there, video today for manifestors. And I hear from manifestors all the time that they don't know which projects to start, whether it's personally or professionally, just struggling to make decisions. It's like, you're here to initiate, but which of the many ideas or inspirations or intuitive hits, which one of those do you start? Which do you initiate? And now I can tell you that after 10 years of serving, supporting, watching and learning from manifestors, that there are basically three key things that you need to know in order to work out how to make the right decision for you so you can initiate the right things. And if that sounds like something you would like other manifestors to be able to hear, like to be able to support that decision-making process, then if you want to hit the like button, that will share it with more manifestors, and we can help more manis get on the right page so you're starting the right things. So let's talk about these. Number one, understanding your inner authority really well. Now, if you are really new to human design, the very first place to understand how to make decisions is to understand your inner authority. And I've done lots of videos on this channel. I'll make sure that I link some of those up here. In fact, let's start with the whole inner authority playlist. I'll pop that up there. It is a shortcut. It is an entry point, but it's not the whole picture. So there's every chance that if you are attracted to my content, you're not totally new to human design, in which case I want to say, one, here's an opportunity to do a bit of a reality check for yourself. Do you understand your inner authority really well? And importantly, do you honor it? Now, there might be any number of reasons that you don't honor it, but that is our starting point, is knowing it really well and then honoring your inner authority. Now, I do have a video for the emotional inner authority. Let's see if I can put my finger in the right spot, which I'll put up here after I've done the live, but you can look in that playlist that I just linked and you'll find emotional inner authority. I have at least one, if not two or three videos on the splenic inner authority. And I also have one really robust one on the ego authority. So as a manifestor, you're going to have one of those three inner authorities. You can't have any other. So if you're not really familiar, that's our starting point. If you're not really familiar with what your inner authority is, so that then you can go out in the world and actively practice it, that's the first thing that you probably need to do in order to make sure that you are initiating the right projects. So number two is having an understanding of your other defined centers. Now, it's all well and good for Ra to have boiled human design down into saying, if you're an emotional authority, you just have to, as a manifestor, you just have to like sit with your idea for a few days and then it'll become magically crystal clear about what you're supposed to initiate. But there are so many different versions of emotional manifestors. I have seen emotional manifestors that literally have one channel from the solar plexus to the throat. And then the emotional manifestor that I live with has 5 channels and truckloads of definition in his design. You know, these two examples are like at opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of like how much is going on in the chart. And so my partner, for example, has like so many other defined centers that are talking to him. So if you are somebody who is an emotional manifestor, as an example, where you have more than just the solar plexus to the throat as definition, then it is super important and super helpful for you to get an idea, have a grasp of how your other defined centers are talking to you, because they have valuable information as well. Now, the emotional inner authority in this example is your biggest part of you. Let's say that's like, if we're looking at the body, that's like your torso, but you still have arms and legs, right? You still have a nose, you still have a mouth, you still have hair. All these bits of you, this definition is still part of who you are. And so it's really important to take that into account. Now, if you don't know all of the 9 centers really well, I do have a course called Learn About Your Energy Centers. I will link it in the video description. And after this is all done, I'll also put it in a pinned post. That is a very low cost way to just zoom through all 9 centers and go, oh, okay, if I have, let's say you're a splenic manifestor, but you also have the root and the ego and the identity center defined. on its way up to the throat, right? Then you can learn about those individual centers and be like, oh, okay, so I have splenic authority, but these other defined centers are saying this as well for me to take into account. Because yes, if you're a manifestor, you have some really powerful things in common with all your manifestor siblings, but you're all a little or a lot different from one another. Okay, so that's your defined centers. So that was number 2. Number 3 is making sure that you don't get hijacked by your undefined or open centers. So if you're that example of the manifestor that I know who just has, it comes to mind, who just has one channel defined with just 2 centers defined, there is a lot of openness going on in there. Like there's a lot of opportunity to get hijacked by other people's definition where you are taking in other people and amplifying that. Now, here are some common ways that manifestors can get that you can get pulled off your path. So if you, for example, have an undefined solar plexus, which about 50% of the population do, it can be really easy to fall into people-pleasing patterns. If there's something you want to initiate, but you know if you do, it's going to upset somebody else, and so that you don't do it because you don't want to upset the other person. Here's another example. If you have an undefined root, which will be a lot of people, I can't remember the exact numbers, but it's a chunk. There's a fair chunk. And in that case, you feel the pressure from everyone else. So there might be something you actually don't want to do. You don't actually have the energy to do it, but other people are leaning on you. They're putting pressure on you to do the thing. And so you go ahead and do it anyway. If you do that enough times, you end up with adrenal burnout, right? Okay, one more example. If you have an undefined ego center, also known as the heart center or the will center. It's that, if you're new to human design, it's that tiny little triangle just off the center. And if it is white, then in this location, it's really, really easy, or with this configuration, it's easy to get sucked into trying to prove yourself, to prove that you're good enough, to prove that you can do the thing, that you can overcome the challenge. But if you have that configuration, you're not here to prove anything to anyone, right? But that pressure, that impulse, that drive to prove yourself or to prove your worth can totally hijack you from actually focusing on the things that you specifically are here to initiate. So I did a recent live that actually covers more on point number 2 and point number 3. And it's called, I've got it written here, Beyond Inner Authority is what it starts with. I'll make sure I pop it up here. So Beyond Inner Authority. And in that, I talk more about the importance of understanding these centers and the influence, whether they're defined or undefined or open, which is very similar. Some of you will know the difference. And how that impacts your decision-making well beyond just understanding your inner authority. From here, if you know that you would like to better understand your centers, remember there is the link in the video description for the Learn About Your Energy Centers. There's also a link in there to book individual sessions if you know that you would like individualized support. So carolinsouthwell.com/coaching will always take you to the coaching options. And if you found this really helpful and you know another manifestor who is like pulling their hair out trying to understand this, you feel free to hit the share button and like send it off to anyone who you feel like it might be helpful. And if you have any further clarifying questions about any of this, then feel free to drop them in a comment. And if I haven't done a video on that, then I'm happy to consider it.